Yeah, I'm Steve, and I'm married and quite middle-aged, I guess. It seems to happen to all of us a lot quicker than you think. I live in Burgess Hill. I've been married for nearly 25 years to the most amazing lady in the world, and we've got 2 children. So we've made a life in mid-Sussex. I started out as an engineer building roads and bridges, but since 2000 I have been a church leader. So by the grace of God, I'm trying to build his church. Yeah. I was never a great sportsman, so I'm not sure if I'm coordinated enough to be a great sportsman. People, when I dance, people get hurt. But always active, can't sit still for a minute. So I like to be up and about and doing stuff, walking and cycling and just getting out and about. In 2012, I started to experience some pains in my foot, and I didn't know whether I'd injured it in some way, something had happened, and quite soon one of my toes swelled up, and I went to the doctors and they took one look at it and said, "Oh yeah, I'm going to refer you to a rheumatologist." Shortly after that, I get to see a rheumatologist and I'm told, you've got arthritis. It's okay, we can treat that, but we're going to need to give you some meds and stuff and see what we can do to make you better. What had started in one foot became joint pain in my hands and feet, and meant that I was taking painkillers 24/7. The meds are challenging. They've got quite a lot of side effects and they end up making you feel pretty sick and nauseous. And it's difficult to tell what is just fatigue with arthritis, which is kind of half the condition. It's exhausting and painful. So if you weren't fatigued by the condition, you're seen pretty fatigued by the constant pain. So I'm taking these meds and trying to see what will get better, but it didn't seem to be working. So I try one, I try another, and they're trying to sort some things. I keep saying it's okay, we think it's going to work, but it wasn't working. So what begins as some pain ends up putting me in a wheelchair. I can only walk a few steps before I am completely fatigued. If I'm standing up, I'm literally starting a stopwatch in my mind, thinking if I don't sit down soon, I'm just not going to sleep at all tonight because the pain will be too intense. So you can do almost nothing. When I first had the wheelchair, I would, try and wheel it into the supermarket so I could wheel myself back out. I couldn't get in, buy milk and get back out again because you're just grinding to a halt, and it was just getting progressively worse with the constant pain. So. Well, obviously I'm a church leader and I believe in prayer and I know God heals. Lots of people are offering to pray for me, which is great, up to a point. At some level, I think people were praying out of a certain amount of pity. I think I made people feel a bit uncomfortable. I was very uncomfortable, and although people didn't tell me till later, they said, "Steve, you looked absolutely awful." But at the time they said, I'd love to pray for you. And I wasn't entirely sure that they did want to, but they were kind enough to do that, and I was grateful for that. The meds that are supposed to be helping me didn't seem to be working, and the doctors are just sort of stacking up the dosage till I've got to the maximum I can take, and things like my liver's not coping very well with a lot of meds, and everybody's praying for me, I know that, but I'm not seeing any change. Yeah, so a friend of mine comes to the church in Ashington, and he says to me, "Steve, we do this thing once a month where we pray for healing. It's just great, you've got to come." And I'm quite sure it is great, but with the fatigue of the condition, evenings are just like a rubbish time. And I'm thinking, I don't know, love to get there. I have had a fair bit of prayer, but can I do this? And it wasn't till the third time. He was kind enough to be quite insistent. It wasn't till the third time that I said, yep, no, I will come. I was feeling a bit bad that I'd not been able to make it a couple of times. So he'd arranged for me to get there. He'd arranged to park really near the door so that I could shuffle awkwardly a few steps into the room and sit there for the evening. There was a guy there called Chuck Parry, and he had told some stories about healings that he'd seen in his church. Just amazing things happening, seeing God do some incredible things. And we'd worship for the evening, and then there was a moment to pray together. He was ever so matter of fact about it. He didn't want anyone to talk about what was wrong with them, really. I think they were allowed to use about 4 words. And so a guy comes to pray for me, and he asks me, what's wrong? And I'm trying to think how I can tell him in 4 words that I hurt a lot. And Chuck at the front's going, no, you've all taken too long, stop. So then we started to pray, and as he prays for me, I'm there just raising my hands to God, and I have this incredible sense of hot oil in my knuckles, and it's really quite an intense sensation there. And so Chuck wants to stop people and see what God's doing and encourage people to pray some more for whatever God might be doing in the room. And so this guy says to me, well, what do you think's going on? And I said, I've absolutely no idea, but there's like this hot oil in my knuckles. So he said, well, that's great. Well, let's pray some more. So, and as he prays some more, I sense it's like running down my arms, and it just seems to be increasing. Anyway, the time comes to an end, and Chuck wants to know if anybody's feeling less pain, and I'm there. I have absolutely no idea. I'm completely exhausted. It's past my bedtime, or effectively, so I just couldn't. The day's done for me, and so I can't tell whether I'm in pain or not. As far as I know, I'm still in pain. I need to go home. So I shuffle out, get back to the car, and go home. And my wife says to me, well, what happened? And I said, Carol, it was just a fantastic evening, really powerful, amazing stories, and it was great to be prayed for. I don't know whether God is healing me or whether he's telling me he loves me, but either way, I'll have that. That was just great. And that was kind of that. I wasn't sure what had happened, and I hadn't really noticed any difference. It wasn't till a couple of days later, we're out and about, and we needed to go to the bank, and Carol had needed to shoot off and collect one of the children, and I'm left there at the bank on my own. I'd only got there because she got me to the door, and I couldn't get out, couldn't leave the place. So I'm kind of stuck. But the awkward thing is, I need the loo. Terribly embarrassing. I've been in this meeting for a couple of hours. I've glugged the coffee, and it's done what it does. And I'm thinking, this is terrible. I'm berating myself, thinking, Steve, you're a middle-aged man and you've not mastered this. What is the matter with you? And I'm thinking, I can't wait in the bank because it's just going to be desperately embarrassing. But I can't go anywhere. I can't go and I can't go anywhere. So I decide I'm going to shuffle around the corner purely to reduce my embarrassment. And I start walking and realise that I can walk. Okay. I wasn't expecting that. So I get around the corner and think, well, okay, I'm kind of out of sight now. What shall I do now? Well, I think I could walk a bit further. So I walk a bit further down the street, and I'm thinking, could I get to that shop? Yes, yeah, I get that. Can I get down to the garage? Yeah, I get there and I'm absolutely fine. And I get out of town and I start walking down the lane back towards home, and I've got nearly a mile before Carol comes back, and is coming back to pick me up, expecting to pick me up from the door of the bank. And there I am on the verge at the side of the road, and she's completely freaked out because she's thinking, what kind of person would drop my disabled husband, give him a lift to the edge of town and drop him off on a verge where he can't get anywhere, What are people like? There's no way this, he could have got there. And I'm going, Carol, I've walked here. I can't believe it, I'm watching. No, you can't possibly have walked. And I realised that I was able to walk and do what I liked. I came back to work and I'm running up and down the stairs, and my colleagues are in disbelief. To get to my office, I'm having to slide along the walls of the corridor. If I haven't got a wheelchair to move around, I just run out of puff, and I just didn't run out of puff. I just kept going and going. The next day I'm in the back garden on a trampoline with my son. I'm just doing whatever's there to do, so it's just crazy. I'm pretty blown away, so I decided I would phone up the doctors and see what they've got to say about that. So, because the thing is, I'd been a couple of years on some meds that weren't working, and so just a little bit before this, they decided they were going to try me on some fancy new meds. And I'd started these meds, and having been struggling, I was just thinking, hold on a minute, I'm not getting any worse. I don't know if I'm getting any better, but I'm not getting any worse. So I'd seen a little bit of improvement, and about 2 weeks before this time I was prayed for, they'd phoned me up and said, we've checked your blood test, we've got a problem with this, you're going to have to stop your meds. So at the time I'd got prayed for, I'd spent 10 days without these meds, and I was worse. I was really painful. So I'm thinking, well, it might be worth a chat with the doctors here. I've been on no meds, I've got worse, and then all of a sudden I'm absolutely fine. So I get hold of the doctors on the phone, and I'm sorry if this sounds a little bit weird, but I've been to this little Anglican church in the sticks, and I've had Christian prayer for healing, and I'm doing good. And I can hear them on the other end of the phone. Mr. Cornford, please keep taking the medicine. Take all of it. I'm thinking, no one's even told me that my liver's working again, but they're desperate that I don't change anything else. Keep taking the medicine and we'll see you in October. So they were keen for me to carry on. So I thought about that for a while. I thought, well, I don't know if I want to, what do I do with that? And as I thought and prayed about it, I thought of Jesus encouraging the lepers to go and present themselves to the priests at the temple. And I thought, well, yeah, why wouldn't I want the doctors to see what's happened? So I thought, okay, I will, I'll try and do what they say, and then I'll go back and see them in October and see what they think. So I took some tablets and stuff like I was supposed to, and I went to see the doctor and chatted it all through. And they ask you when you see them, what's your pain score today? Could you give me a number from, 0 to 10? And how do you feel this condition has been affecting your quality of life since we saw you last? And I said, I think it's a 0 this time, yeah. And what about your quality? Yeah, no, that's a 0 too. And they're looking at the notes, and without looking at them, yeah, that's a different score than you had last time. Why do you think that's different, Mr. Cornford? So I'm there and I'm just saying, well, I'm sorry if this is weird, but I've had some Christian prayer for healing. And since then, I've been doing just great. And without didn't pause, didn't look up. Well, that does seem to have helped this particular flare-up, Mr. Cornford. So that was kind of that. And we went on, and the doctors agreed that I should, having stopped 2 out of the 3 meds at the time that I'd been prayed for, and seen that dramatic change, they said, yeah, well, let's stop those 2. The other one you shouldn't really stop abruptly. We're going to need to phase that out. So we'll just run it down and see whether there's a tiny amount or nothing that you need to be taking. So, okay, so I was glad to stop the meds and started phasing the other one out. Before I'd completely stopped that, I had an allergic reaction to the final meds. So I'm coming out in rashes everywhere and stuff, and my hair starts dropping out. So I phoned him up and said, I don't know what to do here. I seem to be having an allergic reaction. And I was pleased to hear them say, yeah, why don't you just stop that straight off? So I completely stopped the meds, and that would have been in January 2016. I didn't take any meds, and I've done absolutely fine. I've continued on really well. I have no symptoms. The doctors, I think, are still trying to work out what it is. They had to make up their own mind about that, and that's up to them. So it's kind of awkward for them because people don't sort of stop having a condition like this, and for them to say that I haven't got it might suggest that maybe they've misdiagnosed me in the first place. So they've got themselves in a bit of a quandary over that. So at the moment, they're calling me asymptomatic, which I think is a clever word for saying I haven't got something that they think I might have got. That's just as is. They'll make up their mind in time, and I guess one day it'll be easier for them to do that. So I think they would say that I am in remission. But the weird thing is that I think they would expect you to be in remission when all of your meds are balanced, when they've sort of got the meds right, and you're gradually improving, and then suddenly you're kind of flatlining in a good place, and you're in remission, which is the exact opposite of what happened to me. My condition was out of control. It wasn't controlled by meds. They completely stopped the meds, stopped the ones they thought might have helped, and then I'm suddenly better. So they don't have an explanation for that. So while they're making up one of those, I think I'm going to say I'm healed because that seems the most obvious thing. So, which is absolutely amazing. And what is added to that, what blows me away is I got the chance to travel to Romania with a friend, and we were visiting somebody in Romania who's wanting to start a new church. And his way of starting a new church is to invite some people who don't know anything about Jesus and have never been to church before to come along and find out what real church might really be like. So I didn't know this. I thought I was going to meet a bunch of sort of red hot, on fire for Jesus people who were going to start this church. So we go to this meeting and discover that nobody knows anything about Jesus, but we're going to talk to Jesus about them. And so someone says to me, why don't you tell your story, Steve? So I tell my story, and it's being translated, and I'm aware there's a lady that seems a bit animated in the room partway through the story. It's at the bit where I'm talking about being prayed for and this sense of hot oil. And when I'm done, we realise that as I talk about God doing something and this sense of hot oil, she starts to experience the same thing in her hands. And she doesn't know anything about Jesus, never been to church before, but is a really sick lady. And she's on some medication just to function, to get out of bed every day. She's just had a malignant tumour removed and is, in a fight with cancer. So she's blown away that this might happen. And they say to her, through a translator, we say, look, what do you think? Steve said he thought Jesus was, perhaps he was healing him, or he was telling him he loved him. What do you think God's saying to you? She said, I don't know, but it's great. Well, can we pray for you for healing? Yeah. So we pray for her, and she seems to have this powerful encounter with God. And she phoned us the next day. She'd gone home and decided that she would stop taking any of her meds. Now, I don't know if I would have given her that advice. I think I would have liked her to get it checked out or whatever, but she felt she would stop taking her meds and see what happened. And what happened was she got out of bed and she was absolutely fine the next day. So she gets out of bed, she just does the day, does everything it needs doing, and at the end of the day, her husband and teenage son come home and are completely freaked out. They're like, what has happened to you? And cannot believe that she's not taken any meds. And she says, well, I've had Christian prayer for healing, and I'm doing absolutely fine. So the next week, we come home from Romania, but the next week, her and her husband turn up at this group and say, we want to follow Jesus. I've heard since that she was the first person this little church plant baptised, and she has been back to the doctors and been given an all clear from cancer. So just mind-blowing. So it's amazing, I love the fact that while the doctors are still trying to work out what's happened to me, God's breaking in this lady's life, and doctors are saying, no way, you've got no cancer. So it's just an amazing story. And it's amazing to retell the story and just catch a sense of God's presence as I tell it. And I don't know why, well, God's God, isn't he? So, but I sense something of God's favour in telling the story that makes me think if I tell a story, I believe God's going to do something in the telling of it. And so I'm not a big upfront kind of person, which might seem funny with the job that I do, because I don't always want to talk about myself, but I tell a story because it's talking about God, and I'm just amazed that He's done something in me, but even more so, I'm blown away that He's done something through me, that it's because He wants me to be a part of Him, seeing other people change, which is incredible.